2.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm OCDing over my blanket. The dog lies on it, and it's like, you know, there, slightly better. Okay, I totally have my shit together. Look at my blanket; it's straight. Therefore, I am trustworthy. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I gotta put. What do we want to call this thing?
What the F is work-life balance? What the F is? Does balance mean? Creating balance?
WTF, does life balance mean? WTF is life balance? WTF.
Does life balance exist? Really exist?
Let's just call it that. Yeah. Does life balance really exist? Like I straightened the blanket and my dog now knows this and he's coming over to sit on it.
He's like, I gotta sort that out.
Not so lumpy anymore. That's great. All right. Ready? I'm gonna click go live. All right. Good morning. Today, we are exploring WTF it means to have balance and whether it's even possible in today's society. So for so many parents, finding time to replenish ourselves, it goes beyond struggle. We're not just struggling with this, we're in desperation. Like we don't even believe it's possible. And we're just struggling trying to get through. And so we parents need a different solution so that we can feel balanced and whole and in control of our chaos, or at least not completely crushed by it. So today we are going to explore how we help our clients bring more happiness into their busy lives. So Tara, I hear you have a lot of clients that come to you with this. How do you help them out?
I do. So I help them out virtually. It can be anything from panic attacks to anxiety and a lot of picking. It's not something that people talk about very much, but a lot of people are really damaging themselves in order to find their own balance. So I get to help them.
And how do you do that?
So I help them to really, the first thing is to belong to themselves. And we were talking earlier about this method that I do called the Muse method. I teach them that so that they have something at the ready all the time in any situation that they're in where they can come back to themselves. Because I often find that in our darkest times, the times when we're most tense or we feel the most lost, is because we've lost ourselves. And so when you can come back to yourself, you can find that sense of home and peace. And then that fullness helps you to guide you as you move from that moment. So, yeah.
Wow, that sounds super powerful. So as we were talking before we started recording today, we were talking about me being super stressed out right now, and you're like, oh, I have this thing that will help. It's this Muse method, and you just brought it up. So tell me more about it, and how can it help me? Maybe you can demonstrate with me.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So the Muse method is really, really simple. The whole idea behind it is to connect to yourself. So that's the intention. So many times the intention of a lot of things is to release things, but I find that if you deeply connect to yourself, the other stuff as a byproduct gets released. So your intention is to connect to yourself. And how we do that is with 3 different things. One is breath. The second is touch. And the third is closing your eyes. And there's a reason for each. So you close your eyes so that you kind of escape the outside world for a moment. And also because your breath is going to bring you deeper into your body rather than your brain. Our brain, as useful as it is, oftentimes causes us a lot of torture. So we want to move and bridge that gap between the brain and the body by breathing. And then touch is so essential. We look to other people to bring us touch often, but we don't look at the fact that we have two hands and we can bring it to ourselves and really feel at home in that touch. So what I say to people is, and we'll do it in a second, move your hands while your eyes are closed until you get to a place where you feel like you're deeply connected. There's like a little, it's almost like you just slid into yourself, like almost like the body just goes, oh, like, thank you. Kind of like when you get a hug from the right person, you melt a little bit. So we're looking for that tiny little shift. And a lot of people will start maybe one on their chest and one on their stomach, but I'm like, really move your hands around until you feel that shift. Like for me, a lot of times my hand is right here and then on the back of my head, but I
Mm,
can't tell until my eyes are closed. Cause right now I'm just like hands on, whatever. It's the shift happens when you start to breathe really deep and then you close your eyes. So um, it doesn't take long. So I'm just gonna set a timer for us, and because we're being recorded, I'm just gonna do 30 seconds, but even for anyone else, I just say a minute. A minute is
okay.
enough. It's a really powerful time. So are you game? Do you have any questions?
No, let's do it. I'm excited.
Okay, so close your eyes, place your hands on your body and just breathe and connect into yourself. If you need to move your hands until you slot in, go ahead and do that.
I'm good.
All right, take 2 more deep breaths and then we can open our eyes. Awesome. Did that help you to connect to yourself anymore?
That's it? Oh yeah. So like I feel super tingly and happy all of a sudden.
It's, it's not the magic of like doing the muse method. It's the magic of deeply connecting to yourself because life tends to push us out. And that
Mm,
has a ramification on our bodies and our lives, and it makes us feel raw. I mean, it's one of the things that you were saying earlier, you just feel raw. It makes sense because you're not filled with yourself, and we deeply long for that. So, yeah, I do this, like I personally suggest that anybody I work with, they do it 3 times a day. Once when they get up in the morning so that you take you into your day, right? Because so many times we jump out of bed and it's just like, let's go.
yeah.
Um, once at the end of the day so that you take yourself into your dreams, because we are always creating in the subconscious in our dream time, but most of us are creating with our worries.
Right.
So if you do it, you're actually creating with your essence. And then one time in the middle of the day where you feel like you've lost yourself.
Wow. That's going to be a new practice for me. I love that.
I'm glad. I'm glad. So simple. You can take it anywhere. And if you need to like leave a room, I even say with students, like you can do it in class. Like a lot of kids will just do like this and nobody knows. Like if you're just putting your head down or you put your hands on and you just breathe, especially before a test, if you're connected to yourself, you have more access to all the answers too. So
I
but a
love
lot
that.
of kids too, it's like they go into class and they're anxious just because it's new energies from different people. And going from class to class takes a while for that transition. So if you can get back connected to yourself, the transition doesn't feel so painful.
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing. I love that we're moving into a place where we're teaching kids how to connect with themselves, right? That's such a different place than what we grew up with. So very cool.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
And I teach something very similar when it comes to this. My company is called Mind BS, and it stands for 2 things, the obvious one, and then also mind, body, soul. And
Mm.
so the second piece of that is very similar. It's reconnecting your mind, body, and soul because our mind tends to be the leader. Our mind tends to be in control, and our body and soul get pushed away
Mhm.
and told that they're not important and they're not listened to, they're not heard. And so a big part of finding life balance is that replenishment piece. And so what you just did with me in your Muse method, I started feeling happy and calm and soothed and, ready to take on something. And it's very similar. I teach in the mind, body, soul. It's the replenishment part. So it's filling yourself up so that you have like a new definition of rest almost.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like for me, that is replenishment, that is rest. And we think of rest as just, sitting on the couch and Netflix binging. And for most of us, that's not replenishing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we feel just as exhausted at the end of our Netflix binge as we did at the beginning of it. And so people are left at a loss, how do I get my energy back when I'm feeling this defeated? And the answer is to reconnect with yourself through your mind, body, and soul, just like you just demonstrated. Love it.
Love it
All
too.
right. So I'm just very curious. Let's dive into it. Is life balance a myth?
I think that the idea of balance is possibly a myth. I don't think that anything ever gets to be like balanced equally. But I think that there can be for me, it's more of life belonging. If you belong to yourself and you're choosing things that really light you up and where you feel, like you said, replenished or what I would say fulfilled,
Yeah.
it can feel very different. And it doesn't feel like everything's stripping away at you. So, how about you? What do you feel about life balance?
Well, it's interesting. I've been having this conversation a lot in the last week as we've been planning this. I've been, posting and people have all of their different opinions. And I do believe that there is a life balance. And I do believe that it has to be intentional because, some people talk about flow and I'm like, yep, but how do you get there? Like a big thing of what we do as, you and I are both, we teach people how to do this is how do you get in the flow? And so I teach a method where you're balancing three things because I think we're balancing the wrong things. It's not work life. It's not even work life us. For
Mm-hmm.
me, my three things that I want to balance are number one, my obligations. That's the heavy side,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I want to lighten that side. Replenishment, that's the second side that we've just talked about, and fulfillment, which you just alluded to. So if we can lighten the obligation and very consciously, add to the replenishment and the fulfillment pieces of our life balance, then we're starting to get into a place where not one side or another is tipping us over. And I agree, it's never going to be perfect, but sort of a conscientious effort put into making sure that we do have more than just obligation in our life, because as a parent, that's what it feels like. Like work is an obligation, life is an obligation. Even overnight, there's no like 8 hours of sleep. We have obligations to these kids throughout the night. It's 24/7. And that doesn't leave any room for anything else. And as you just demonstrated, replenishment can take 30 seconds. It doesn't have to be this huge, huge thing. And then that coming back to yourself, that's how you get fulfillment, right? Finding your true self, because we tend to look at fulfillment through our mind BS, through our programmed lens. And that is a whole lot of shoulds. Well, I should feel fulfilled by, I should be fulfilled by my work. I have a great job. I should be fulfilled by my kids. They're amazing, and then we end up with a whole lot more guilt. And that just adds to the weight that we're carrying. And shifting that into a place of right, like you said, back to yourself, back to your true self, and figuring out what it is that does light you up. And there are elements of all sorts of these things. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be tiny things about your kids, tiny things about your job, tiny things about your life, like just the beautiful view out your window, just tiny little things that start adding up into this place of fulfillment. And the closer you get to your true self, the easier it is to see what lights you up and what you want to do in a moment and make that choice, because the obligation has gone down. And so now you're like, oh, I'm going to make the choice right now to do this thing that I really want to do. And it's going to light me up and I can't wait to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you've figured out how to tap into your body and realize that is the thing that I want to do. And the mind BS is sort of dissipating, saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should be, at like taking stuff off your to-do list. And so when all of those things come together, it just becomes an easier way to manage your life.
Mhm. So can you give some examples that maybe you have or that some of your clients have had of what is actually replenishing or fulfilling for them? Just because
Okay.
there might be people who are listening who are like, I don't know anymore. You gave great examples of shoulds, but what the heck? What could actually replenish me? What are some examples?
Okay, so replenishment and fulfillment are two completely different things in my mind.
Yep.
Replenishment is that very conscious mind, body, soul connection. So let me give you an example. So if you're doing dishes, okay, mind and body is the whole principle behind mindfulness. So if you're connecting your mind and your body by like feeling the water or, you know, smelling the soap, your dish soap or whatever, that is mind body connection. And if you can create an emotion in that moment, like, oh, I'm at peace for these 3 seconds that I'm doing these dishes, and connect to that emotion, you've now connected mind, body, soul. And just like you doing it a couple of times a day, doing it multiple times a day of conscientious mind, body, soul. And the reason that I love this is because you can do it while you're doing anything. It does not have to be a separate thing. You can be doing it while you're taking the dog for a walk. You can do it while you're cuddling the dog. Cuddling a pet is a perfect mind, body, soul connection because you can feel your pet, you know, and the warmth and the fuzziness, and you can maybe feel an emotion of love for them. And you've just turned this thing that you're already doing into a mind, body, soul connection. You can do it while you're in a meeting, kind of like you said with those kids, you know, like you can be conscious of your feet on the ground and, you know, connect to a feeling of satisfaction about whatever. One of my favorite soul connection visuals is my kids sleeping. It's so easy to pull up an emotion with that visual. And then I've just done, you know, a 10-second replenishment activity in the middle of my meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, all of those little bits they're what I call mentio, they're mental physio.
Mm-hmm.
That is adding to your energy. And so that's the replenishment piece. And the fulfillment piece is something completely different. And I teach a 5-step program, and fulfillment is at the very end for that exact reason, because people don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And before you can get to that, you have to get rid of all of that mind BS that tells you that your obligations need to be heavy, and that direct your energy into things that you have learned are more important than you,
Mm-hmm.
which is for most of us, everything and everyone, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you have to learn those techniques of getting connected to yourself. And then the biggest one is you have to learn, and the step 4 is our no BS boundaries. And this, so I have a very different view on boundaries. Boundaries for me is all about energy and connecting your energy to your values.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an action step that allows you to say, I really care about this. And so I'm going to take this action.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start doing that, you start getting closer and closer to your true self. And so you'll find yourself at a place where it's like, I really care about, you know, feeling fulfilled. And so I'm gonna do that art project that I wanted to do. You know, I've had that all of the stuff for it in my basement for 10 years. I'm gonna pull it out and I'm gonna do it, right? And it's different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the biggest thing. Is like I can give examples, but it's not only different for everybody, but it's different for everybody moment to moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because one moment I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to do that art project. And then another time it might be like, you know what? I really want some fresh air. It's going to feel so fulfilling to just walk around the block. But it's about allowing yourself to have that space. And the more you do that, the more you find activities that light you up, the clearer it becomes. Like some people call it your, you know, your purpose or whatever. See, that's a word that I don't believe in. I think all of our purpose is to just shine as our beautiful light and add to the world. But
Be yourself.
um,
That's your purpose, to be
that is
yourself.
oh my
Yes.
goodness, we're in agreement on that.
Yeah,
Yes, 100%.
totally.
Okay, now I have talked too much about that. Tell
No.
me about how you help your clients with fulfillment.
Yeah, I first of all, I just want to say you way back you said something about tapping into your body. And I think that's a powerful thing that most people aren't taught to do, is to really tap in to nurture the wisdom that's coming, the messages that are
Yes.
coming. So that in itself is it's like another language that for
Yes.
so many people, they've been taught to not listen to just carry on, to get on with the commitment. Like if your body is longing to go outside because like down here in February, it's supposed to be 30 degrees or less outside, and today we're going to hit 60 something. Why would you not go outside and enjoy that, right? Like if
Yes.
everything inside of you is saying, I'm longing for that, or even the tiniest voice to take the moment out and matter to yourself.
Yes.
So, to me, fulfillment lies in the fact that you matter. And the very first person that needs to showcase that is ourselves to ourselves. Um, and, your definition of boundaries, I totally align with. Um, what I would like, I always come back to this. I'm such a wordy person. Like, I love the meaning of words. What you described is actually the definition of honoring. And honoring is regarding something highly. So you described like regarding yourself highly, listening in, right? And then making an agreement with the self. Like
Yes.
boundaries is so often like rules, and it's like, well, I'm going to go to the gym today. Well, what if I would rather walk around the neighborhood? It's having that high regard for self that I'm willing to shift and make a new choice in order to care for me. And I have the agreement with myself that I matter enough to stay tapped in. I mean, none of us really want any kind of relationship where it's the same thing all the time.
Mhm.
Right. And so even with ourselves, it's like you can't do the same thing all the time. You need to stay tapped in, listen and see what does your body need today. Maybe it doesn't need to lift weights. Maybe it doesn't need to run. Maybe it needs to just stretch. Or, maybe it is that nap out in a hammock, right? Maybe we do something like that. And to me, I think that is an art. It's an art to really pay attention to ourselves. But I mean, I just love how you approach things with people. I really do. I think it's really nice to provide a framework for them in order to guide them to this place that isn't what we've been programmed to do. We've been programmed to ignore ourselves and to show up for everyone else, and everybody's mad at everybody because I'm left out, right? So, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
absolutely. And I think you've just described in way better words fulfillment to me, because what you said is, your body is longing for that, and then giving yourself what you need in the moment. That is fulfillment. That's what it feels like. It's like, if I want, like you mentioned the hammock, I want to go outside and sit on my hammock. We deny ourselves that all the time. No, 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 it's work time. Or no, 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 I've got to do this. I've got to, wash the floors now, or whatever it is. Like we always have something that denies our yearning on the inside, and allowing ourselves, giving ourselves the permission to give it to ourselves. That's going to be fulfilling in the moment.
Mhm,
That's loving yourself, right? And so I just love the way you described that. That's exactly what I'm talking about, how it's different for every, like in how it's different in any moment,
mhm,
because hammock is great. And but in the next moment, it might be something else. Maybe I do want to lift those weights, right? And giving that to yourself instead of turning it into a should. And I think what's really important here in this conversation is that we're talking about tiny things. We're
mhm.
talking about 5 minutes in the hammock, one workout. You
Right.
know what I mean? People think of fulfillment as finding a thing that they are just going to gravitate towards. Like, I'm going to use my business, for example. I have this business. I help amazing moms move into their best lives. I love it. I'm passionate about it. But is it always fulfilling? No, sometimes it's hard. We're moving into tax season. Blech.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
right. And it's not always just working on my business is therefore fulfilling. Sometimes it is the hammock. Sometimes it is walking around the block. Sometimes it's something completely different, and every moment changes. And so that fulfillment piece is all about those tiny, tiny choices that give you self-love, that feels so amazing on the inside and allows you to feel like you're at peace in your life.
I agree with you on the tiny moments, and those are great because you can't always schedule when you need self-care, right? Because a lot of people will think, oh, the massages or acupuncture or a concert even, and those are awesome, right? Those are awesome moments and they do add to your life. But if you're not willing to show up for yourself when you need it, if you're always putting yourself away, and saying no, later, 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 we tend to feel fractured
Yeah.
and heavy and depressed because we're always put on the back burner. And and then we tend to attract people who treat us the same way, because even with them, we're going to say, oh no, let's do whatever you want first, right? We tend to have that same attitude. So these tiny moments are massive because they shift energy. They shift the way that we relate to others without needing to try so hard,
Yes.
and I just think it's exciting to know that taking a tiny moment out could do that. And also taking that tiny moment for a little walk or something could mean that you come back completely refreshed and renewed, or your word replenished, in order to get back to a task that now you're bringing yourself to, instead of bringing angst and irritation and overwhelm. So,
Absolutely. I love that, because the shifting to the tiny moments makes it possible. So is life balance possible? Heck yes, it is. But you have to do it in a way that it is made for busy people. Do you know what I mean? In a way that is systematic. And that's why I say it's intentional. Like we think about balance as work. I'm like, well, yeah, it kind of is. It's kind of like a relationship, right? This is a relationship with yourself. It takes intention, and it takes time, and it takes love, and it takes a little bit of work. We have to want to put our energy into ourselves and be our biggest champion. And if we're ready for that, we absolutely can achieve anything we want. We can have that life balance. We can fill ourselves up in ways that we can overflow onto our kids and our loved ones and all of the people around us. Even though, like if you're like me, I have a full-time job, I've got 2 side businesses and 4 kids. I'm telling you, it is possible with just these tiny moments that both Tara and I are talking about today. All right, big takeaway from today, Tara?
oh my gosh, I don't even know. It's like the whole thing. I love this conversation. I love your whole attitude about it is absolutely possible. I think the biggest takeaway is the tiny moments, that willingness to show up for yourself in those tiny moments. And I'd love to like coin a little phrase around that, which is like self-love currency. And so what is your self-love currency of the day? Like, are you actually investing in it? Has it gone dry? Like, and I believe that for all of us, our body is going to let us know where your currency is at, So if you think about a bank account, your bank account is going to let you know if it's in the red or it's getting close. Our body does the same thing when it starts to get tight, overwhelmed, sad, whatever. And we can say, what kinds of self-love currency can I do throughout the day, which just add to that replenishment or add to fulfillment. So,
Oh, I
yeah.
love that. That's so very tangible. And we love the idea of, money and having money. And so being able to think of it that way in terms of your own self-love, that is beautiful. Ah, okay. So yeah, again, for me, I'm like, I don't even know what my takeaway is. So tiny moments, number one, and number two, balance the right things. And so for me, it's obligation, fulfillment, and replenishment. For somebody else, it might be different, or each of those 3 things might look different. But if you are looking to have more life balance, contact Tara or I. Our information will be in the description, and we would love to hear from you. So thanks for showing up today, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you too.
Bye.
Awesome.